going back to the intro about, things I've learned over time, there's 3 subjects on which my opinion has been changed and attenuated over time. One of which is Schmishmarschen, the other of which is sanctions. Because now I genuinely appreciate sanctions do nothing to the person you're trying to punish. They just penalize innocent citizens. And the defense is one of two. Either it's the only way to
odd, like people say we should be concerned about women and children that are dying in the war, in the conflict. And it's like, well, I understand that, and I agree. But is our reaction to starve people, which is the official pitch is to starve and destroy the Russian economy, which means starving ordinary Russian people? How is that any better?
Well, because Robert, the argument is going to be, you got to get them to turn against their leader. And so in my mind, targeting innocent civilians for political purposes has historically been the actual definition of schmerism. But now they want to do it because they think they're morally justified to penalize a population as a whole because of the guilt of their leader. And that's also how you get into more serious things like schmenicide, which we won't get into. But so I've changed my mind on sanctions. And it started not because of this. It actually started when people were saying, hey, Dave, do you support sanctions against Canada for what they're doing to citizens? And like, how's that gonna penalize Trudeau? He's got 5 houses. He can fly to Europe whenever he wants. He breaks the rules whenever he wants. How's that gonna punish him? It's just gonna punish me. Or not even, I don't do anything. It'll punish people who actually want to live a life. I've changed my opinion on the ultimate penalty, the death penalty. I've changed my opinion on it, not because I do not believe that people who are in fact guilty of the most heinous crimes should just be simply dispatched of. I've now lived long enough, Robert. You have not blackpilled me, but I've lived long enough to know that I know how the system works now, and I don't trust it to dole out justice 100% of the time, which is what you would need in order to believe in that system. And then the second argument is I always thought it was cheaper to impose the death penalty, but knowing that it's not, I would like to look at countries that I don't want to be like and say, what do they do? And if they do that, then maybe we don't do that. So I've changed my mind on this as an adult. I might have also gotten tired and more sensitive. The Boston bomber, probably, the quintessential example of an individual who might deserve it. The horror of that incident does not change my opinion. I still don't believe in it anymore for the reasons I elaborated, even though I'm firmly confident in this particular case, it's warranted, justified, and appropriate. I've seen how the system works. And if you can't assure it to everybody, you can't assure it to anybody. You can't impose it on anybody. So he had his initial conviction for the death penalty overturned by the appeals court on the basis that the trial judge excluded from jury consideration on deliberation of the penalty certain evidence. One element, I'm going to forget the other one. One would have attenuated his responsibility to show that his brother was the mastermind, exerted pressure on him. And the other, I think the other element, correct me if I'm wrong, was a crime that the brother had committed to show that he was truly the ringleader and influencer of the plot, so that life behind bars, but not the death penalty. The judge said, no, you're not getting that evidence in. Jury sentenced the way he sentenced. Court of Appeals said, should have been admitted, resentencing. Supreme Court, and I think I was surprised by the split on this, but I'm not sure, said no, overturning it and reinstating the original penalty. What is your takeaway from the process, not just the Supreme Court decision, but from the trial judge's decision to the appeals court to the Supreme Court decision?
Yeah, and the other part of it was jury selection. The Court of Appeals thought there should be a prophylactic rule that every district court should follow pursuant to its supervisory authority in the way in which, at certain questions he should have asked that the defense attorneys requested. Unfortunately, the Supreme Court has done a lousy job protecting the right to a fair and impartial jury, and they continued that in this case, though they detailed that this case had extensive individualized jury selection and had a lot of really good, robust jury selection. But in my view, it could have gone and should have gone further. I don't think the Court of Appeals necessarily had supervisory power in the way they did. I understand the Supreme Court's logic on that side of the equation, but the Supreme Court's done a lousy job of securing fair and impartial juries in the United States for quite some time. And this was a continuation of that. And I think in part because of how horrific the crime was, I think there was a tendency of the Supreme Court to move the law in a way that secured his death penalty rather than enforcing the law itself, regardless of who the defendant is and what the crime is alleged to be. The similar on the evidentiary standard, for those who don't know, death penalty stage is usually bifurcated in the United States. First, you decide whether you're guilty, and then you have a death penalty jury after that, or they decide the penalty. The prosecutions notoriously use this to get rid of jurors who will be sympathetic to the defense or skeptical of the government, because they will be disproportionately disfavorable to the death penalty. So they're able to get any juror that's pro-death penalty or any juror that's anti-death penalty is disproportionately likely to be willing to second-guess the government in the prosecution of their case. And so this has always been a problem with the nature of the death penalty cases. Obviously, I think from the evidence I've seen, I haven't researched it in much detail. I understand why people felt good about him receiving the death penalty. I think the Supreme Court's decision was wrong on the law. I don't think that they were. I think voir dire jury selection could have been better. Why not make it better? Make a fair and impartial jury trial real, not just illusory as it is in most federal courts in America. And I think some of those evidentiary issues, I didn't see any reason why they shouldn't have been introduced. The death penalty stage is supposed to be broad to give you that stage of the case. Something that may not be relevant to trial. It should be relevant to the death penalty sanction to get the whole context. And you should give a robust defense presentation on that because his life is on the line. And so I didn't agree with the Supreme Court on that either. But it's where they went. And I think the horrific nature of the crime led the court in the direction it did more than constitutional principle, in my view.
What was the split on that decision? Do you remember?
I'm not remembering off the top of my head.
Okay. And then, by the way, someone said, read some Rumble Rants. Let me just go back to Rumble Rants. You got TJR Shredder says, Cam from YouTube. Don't know what that means. Third generation Canuck. I know what that means. Global air travel going back to Soviet days when Russia bans overflights between Europe and Asia. Add another day plus to travel plans. People, unless you're an elitist with a private jet, swift reaction. Okay. And we got Facts Matter, YouTube, Kiss My Tushy. You got another one, Kiss My Tushy. A lot of Kiss My Tushies on Rumble Rants. YouTube, Kiss My Tushy.